Hey y'all, Walker Montgomery here, and thank you so much for tuning in to my brand new YouTube series, Whiskey Wednesday. We're going to be releasing a new episode the first Wednesday of every month, and for the first episode, I'm very excited to have two special people in my life, my dad, John Michael Montgomery, and my uncle, Eddie Montgomery of Montgomery Gentry. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for having us, man.
No doubt. So we're at the beautiful Amsden Bourbon Bar here in Versailles, Kentucky. Neither one of y'all have ever been here, right?
I have not.
No, first time I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, I know you've heard a lot about it, but yeah, awesome place. Thanks to them for letting us use it. And the next episode that we're gonna have is actually some of the owners of this bar, so you get a little history of the bar and some bourbon knowledge as well. But so basically how this is going to happen is I'm just going to ask you all questions about your life, and then we're going to drink bourbon. Right now we're drinking Kentucky Owl, which is what I've been sipping on, and I stole it from him. So I get this a lot, just traveling and everything. How often, still to this day, do people not know that you're brothers? And then they find out and they're shocked.
Let the old guy.
Yeah. Does that happen often?
The pretty one. Let the pretty one answer first. Man, believe it or not, there's still people. I'll be talking to somebody and I'll say something about my brother. Of course, I call him John Boy, but most people know him as John Michael. And they'll look at me and they're just stunned. Not once they go like, "Hold it, you and John Michael are brothers?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And so it's always, always made a joke about it. Mom was a drummer, Dad was a guitar player, and the bartenders were our babysitters.
Yeah. But I mean, it is wild because even to this day, both of y'all, I assume, still get it, and I get it during meet and greets and stuff that I do on the road. But I don't know if it's just I don't know why some people haven't figured it out yet. But it is true.
Well, I think a lot of people would they're thinking that if I had a brother out there singing, that we're going to be a lot of the same, Mm-hmm. We're only, 16 months apart, and we are a lot alike.
Yeah.
But musically, our styles are so different. That's why it's worked out in the radio world and worked out in the fan world, because his music is completely different than my kind of music that I created. And so the fans are able to, not be able to make those comparisons and enjoy both of our music in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if ever want to hire us for a wedding, he can do the wedding songs, and I'll do the reception songs.
Yeah, you'll do the after
party. I'll do the after party.
It's the perfect team right there. So you're the older one, obviously.
I don't look as old as he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just a little bit older.
And I actually don't know this because I'll know a lot of the answers to some of these questions. But to this, I don't. Which one of y'all started playing first? Or was it kind of simultaneously?
I think, the bottom line is Mom and Dad, Dad, they always had a band when we was kids. And they would play little places on the weekends and, like down in Camp Nelson or places like that. And we would follow them around. And Dad and Mom would get us up on stage and let us sing, Blue Suede Shoes or this and that together, and we were kind of part of the entertainment. Dad was real good about it, going, "Hey, let's get these boys up here, let them be part of the show." And of course, when we got out of high school, we just kind of started. Dad and Mom had gotten divorced at that point, so me and Eddie and Dad and another friend of ours, Tim Williams, played bass guitar. We just kind of put a little band together right out of high school and started playing, but we were playing in Mom and Dad's band. He played drums, I played the rhythm guitar, and when we was in high school, so we never really started out one before the other. Yeah. We grew up with instruments in our house
instead of furniture.
Yeah, and we literally would set on amplifiers, and the drum set stayed set up all the time. And we had a little couch over here and a little TV over there and a wood burning stove here. But the rest of it was basically the music. It was basically set up so when the weekend came, all the all of our dad's musicians, all they had to do was show up and walk in and plug their guitars in, you know, and put the bottle on the amplifier or whatever they were drinking, and if they weren't playing that weekend and they were practicing or just jamming that weekend, having fun, and me and Eddie, as the song says, we just kind of joined right in there.
Yeah, I got it. So I'd assume that y'all started playing out the same time as you started kind of picking that stuff up as well.
Yeah, we started our band at the same time, and you know, and
we played Cecil Lane's in the family band. I remember that. Yeah. And played a lot of different. I remember a lot of places we went and played was back when, you know, we're going to tell a little age here, but back when CB radios was a big thing, man, and they'd go do these CB radio things.
Old
and Dad would always play. I always remember him always telling us, boys, this ain't going to pay much, but we're going to get all kinds of exposure out of this. Remember him saying that all the time?
That sounds like some of my gigs right now.
We did a lot of gigs for exposure, for hoping to get more gigs down the road. And there was one time I remember over at the Red Barn there in Washington City, we were standing behind stage, and Dad came up there to pay everybody because you got paid by the door, you know, and I don't know, like $2 a head. Well, you know, everybody got the, you know, the concession stands. You could get a hot dog, candy bar, hamburger, whatever, and that would go against on your tab, and they would deduct it, you know, out of the night's head count. Well, Dad comes back here and he goes, "Well, everybody owes $12 a piece," you know, and they were like, "What?" And no, I mean. It was fun times. I mean, we got to see a lot of stuff growing up that, you know, we wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. Oh, I guarantee it.
Yeah. So there were some places though. When you walked in the door, they asked you if you had a gun. If they didn't, they'd give you one.
Oh yeah. I've heard some stories on that.
We played basically. Frankfort and Somerset and Richmond, Kentucky, you know, around. We played a lot around Lexington.
Just lots of central
hoping
Kentucky
to eventually
stuff.
get into Lexington market.
Yeah.
And because Lexington market was a full-time house band type gig situation, 5 nights a week, sometimes 4 nights a week, where all the other markets, you know, were more weekend warrior. You know, you played here this week, next week, you know, played there. So once we were able to get into Lexington and start doing a 5-night-a-week house gig, we were like, no more dragging equipment around. Yeah. We can just like the old days, we just walk in, you know, like our living room and plug our guitars in and turn the stuff on, and you know, we ain't got to rent a U-Haul and all that stuff.
No trailers or anything. Yeah. So obviously your record deal came first in the early 90s. Yours was second. I'm going to ask both of y'all about kind of how it all came about. I actually don't know how yours came about, but I know yours. But if you could just kind of tell a little bit about that and where you're playing and how it happened.
Well, it was funny because I'd been playing Austin City Saloon. Eddie was my drummer, and we all, you know, sang, you know, took turns singing and all that stuff. We actually had a band called Early Times Band that we used to have, we actually spelt it ERLYTYMZ because we was afraid Early Times might sue us or something.
Oh, the whiskey?
The whiskey, yeah. And Dad loved Early Times. We drank Early Times a lot back in our younger days. And then we ended up being John Michael Montgomery and Young Country once we got into Lexington market. And then we actually left Austin City just for a short period of time, and I ended up down at this place. We ended up down at this place called the Congress Inn, or
the Dungeon.
AKA the Dungeon.
Yeah.
And I was down there singing, and this guy come in, and he said, "Hey, you know, he had this artist that was getting ready to do a showcase for Atlantic Records. He liked this song that I wrote called A Few Cents Short." And I actually wrote that song. Me and Eddie were in an old Ford Escort I had, you know, and we didn't have any money except some change in the floor. And we dug it up, put some gas in the car, got some hot dogs and, you know, all that stuff. So I wrote that song about that. And this guy really liked it. And he was getting, you know, he wanted to sing it at the showcase. Atlantic Records was coming up to Lexington. And like I said, we had just recently moved to Congress Inn. And so I did the song for this guy that was managing him, and I asked him, I said, "Well, did you like the song?" And the guy's name is Estel. He said, I like the song, but I like you even better. And he said, after this showcase we're doing for this guy, I'm going to bring him back up here and do a showcase for you. Well, the guy at Austin City, we ended up going back and, playing Austin City. And sure enough, he brought the Atlantic Record guys up during the showcase for the guy that was doing the showcase. One of the guys snuck over and saw me at Austin City Saloon, and that's when he was like, he said, I really wasn't all that impressed with the guy that we were seeing, and I asked the waitress if there were any other country singers in town, and she said the best singer down at Austin City Saloon is named John Michael Montgomery, and he had already listened to a set of first set, and sure enough, White Easterling, it was his name. I remember his name, there might have been 5 people in the whole place when they came in there, but the rest of the guys came from the showcase and came up and saw me, and then about 2 months later, the main guy from Atlantic Records came up and saw me, and then that was in I'm thinking the summer of '91, maybe somewhere around in there. And then by the fall of '91, I was going down there to, I was recording a 4-set artist development, is what they called it back then. They did 4 songs in a studio. First time I'd ever been in a studio. And they listened to it and they said, we love it. We want you to do a whole album with us. And then, so I went back in and we started recording the rest of the album, and then there was a disagreement at Atlantic Records of who was going to run it, and then another guy took over. We got together and talked about the producer who was supposedly producing me, and he wasn't showing up to the studio, and he was on his way out of Atlantic Records, so we ended up changing producers and brought in Doug Johnson, who brought in Life's a Dance, Beer and Bones, Love the Way You Love Me. Brought in some really good songs for that first album. So it took about a little over a year to get the album finished, and then we finally put Life's a Dance out in around September of 1992. And so that's how all that kind of conspired over that time period. A lot went on. In the meantime, I was still playing Austin City Saloon, going down, on the weekends, like on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday, and recording Life's a Dance album, and then coming back and on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, playing at Austin City and singing. And I was telling all these people, that I was down there recording this album, and after about a year went by, they were like, "You're full of crap. No, you're just pulling our leg. You ain't really doing anything down there." And I said, trust me, I really am. I'm cutting an album for this label called Atlantic Records. And then Life's a Dance came out, and it broke top 40. And then people started coming in and going, why are you still here singing? Because you got a top 40 hit. Why are you still at Austin City? I said, hey, I still got to eat. I was like, I got shows booked 6 months down the road, but I might have a top 40 hit record, but it ain't paying the bills right now. But it also felt good to go in there and sing Life's a Dance. All of a sudden, people started flocking in there and going, "This guy's got a hit record. He's still singing at Austin City, and we get to see him and all that."
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then, obviously, Eddie's story. He was out on the road with me from that whole time period. He was my tour manager. He helped sell merch and all that stuff. And for a few years, and then he ended up going back to Austin City and singing because he missed it, and I was taking some time off to rest my voice, and he can start it up from right there.
Yeah, so your record deal, it was it 98 or 99?
97.
No, so it was 97 when y'all
we
first
signed in 97.
with Columbia, right?
Columbia Southern.
What, 95, 96?
95.
Took a little break in 96, and you went back to Austin City.
So tell me how that kind of conspired.
I didn't really. I knew what style I wanted to do, and I missed the front of the stage. I always wanted to be on the front of the stage.
Yeah, we know.
But
I always tried to hide him because of all his ugliness. I put him behind the drums. Dad did the same thing. You know? It's like, hey, we don't want him running all of our crowd off.
Yeah.
If they see him, they'll all go, oh my God.
no, they had to put the entertainer on the drums because they didn't want to get showed up.
Yeah, something like that. All right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, anyway, I always fronted the drums, and at Austin City when I was playing drums, I always sang from the drums to play. Because John Boy, when I went on stage, he'd be over there playing pool with somebody, you know, for money.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to start at 9 o'clock, and I finally get him up there about 9:30. So, but we had I got to playing back at Austin City, and Sony Columbia Records heard about us, and they sent one of their guys up, and I reckon there'd been some talk about, you know, from between people in Nashville, that, you know, that I was also a singer, and I didn't really want to get known as John Boy's brother, the drummer, you know, and so anyway, me and Troy started doing, because he started when we started the band in Austin City. Troy was playing acoustic also, so me and him kind of got back together, and it seemed like every time they'd call one of us, they'd call the other one, and it just worked out good. And so they come up and they said, "Man, would you come down to Nashville and play for us?" And he was like, I said, "We really like you, and you're all what we're hunting for." So we went down there, and it was wild. It was in this log cabin. I'll never forget it. I thought I'd never forget the name of it. I got it right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it.
It happens to people your age. It's all right, brother.
I heard that.
They make big changes.
It might have been the Wood Shack, I think is what it was called.
Oh,
But anyway, you couldn't see out there. And we was backstage, and you could see way, way in the back. And it was totally pitch dark, but you could see an outline of two guys sitting back there at this table. And I'll never forget, Troy was like, "Man, they ain't going to have nobody here." And I was like, "Hey, we'll just go out there and rock it like there's 20,000 people." And at the end of doing, we done 5 songs, and it was all original stuff. And we actually, they come up and said, "Would y'all take a record deal on a handshake?" I stuck my hand out and I said, "Yeah, I'll take one, but if we don't get one on this handshake, I'm going to whip somebody's ass." And so that's how it started. And I'll never forget, man, because we walked in the office to the president and everything when we were going to sign the contract stuff, and we got our bonus check and all that crap, signing bonus.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, because we took him in some moonshine, took Alan Butler in some moonshine, set it on his desk and stuff, and we're just all excited, all tore up. And Alan says, y'all ready, man? Y'all ready to do all this? I said, yeah. He said, well, let me tell you this. He said, you just got to remember one thing. You're a product. And when a product quits selling, then I won't need you no more. And I was like, that was the first day. When we signed our contract, it's like,
welcome to the cold-hearted side.
Welcome to the music business.
Well, one good thing, though, is, like you said, there wasn't but a couple of guys standing back there. But one thing, me and you had, if we had learned how to play for empty chairs, it'd come in handy. Situations like that, because it's like, well, we got 2 people, but they paid their $5 each, so we're going to, doesn't mean they don't get any less of a show because there ain't nobody else in here. So
I love it. It's amazing how it's so different back then than it is now. But
it's changed a lot.
Yeah. We're going to continue the conversation, but you're going to have to tune in for next month, because this is going to be a 2-part episode, because obviously there's a bunch I still want to talk about, and I got y'all here.
We just scratching the surface.
Yeah. But be sure to tune in next month. I'm going to have Dad and Uncle Eddie back. So tune in first Wednesday of every month, Whiskey Wednesday.